We are watching the English-speaking world divide before our eyes. The United States has gone towards freedom under President Trump, slashing government spending and power and celebrating human rights and freedom of speech. Meanwhile, both Canada and Australia have recently had general elections and both have chosen the other path, returning to power the incumbent parties who are largely responsible for their own economic woes and loss of freedom over the last few years. What does that mean for the UK? Well, the jury is still out in the UK, with the recent local elections offering a bright spark of hope in the form of the Reform Party surging to the front. When combined with the recent UK Supreme Court ruling which reaffirmed that a woman is a biological concept and not a social construct, it seems that all is not lost in the UK, at least not to the same degree as it might be elsewhere in the Commonwealth. The question is, why the difference? Why is freedom on a resurgence in the UK while it is in the back foot in Australia and Canada? What can we learn and what should we do to maximise the chances of freedom winning out in our part of the world? My name is Topher, Australasian reporter for Tousi TV, and with the dust settling from the Australian election, the trend could not be clearer. Where once the English-speaking world focused on what united us, and what united us was freedom and prosperity, now we are focused on what divides us. Many are quick to blame Donald Trump, both for the division but then also for the commanding victories which have gone to the left in both Canada and Australia. But that explanation is a little too simple, because it fails to explain why the UK is going the other way, when arguably the UK have borne the brunt of the Trump effect, with humiliating White House confrontations where US Vice President J.D. Vance called out the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer for not defending freedom of speech, with no special treatment for the UK on tariffs despite Starmer's optimism following a summit with President Trump, and with starkly contrasting visions for the future of the war in Ukraine. The UK, you would think, would experience this supposed Trump effect as strongly, if not more strongly, than Canada or Australia. So what's different about the UK to cause that Trump effect to have been, it would seem, a positive thing electorally for those associated with Trump, where it has been such a negative thing in Australia and Canada? Well, actually, I don't believe the difference is between the UK and other countries in their voting public. It's between Nigel Farage and the Reform Party, who are very willing to play the part of the villain in the media, and who are, relatively speaking, fearless about defending their values and what they stand for, versus Peter Dutton in Australia and Pierre Poilievre in Canada, who come off as weak, lacking clear values, and being afraid of criticism. I'm convinced that the difference is not in the voting public at all, that both Canada and Australia could have enjoyed very different outcomes, much more similar to what we just saw in the UK local elections, if only the Australian and Canadian politicians had possessed even a fraction of the courage of President Donald Trump. Here in Australia, our left-wing media tried to portray our Conservative Party leader as a mini-Trump, a label that he was very keen to distance himself from, and rightly so, because he's not even a Temu Trump. He is not even a discount dustbin Trump. The label doesn't fit. But the evidence would suggest that the electorate actually has more of a problem with the distancing than it ever did with the label. In the end, voters want leaders who believe in something, and sadly, because most people don't actually know what it is that they believe in, they will support whichever leader, whichever candidate believes in something most strongly, no matter what it is. We can argue about whether that's how politics should be, but that would be a pointless argument because that is simply how it is. It is belief that matters when you want to get elected. So when you have a situation like Australia, where we had a Prime Minister Albanese who stood firm on his socialist beliefs, proclaimed his policies proudly despite their absurd price tags and dubious effectiveness, he believed in what he was saying. And on the other side, we had Peter Dutton, who was easily flummoxed, struggled to articulate what he actually believed in, and betrayed his values in an effort to be liked. When it's between those two, it's the candidate with passion, with fire in his belly, with actual beliefs in his own policies who will win every single time. And that's true whether that candidate is right or wrong, is wise or clueless. That actually matters less, because voters want to believe in someone who believes in something. And that is where both Dutton and Poilievre fell down. They were afraid to directly articulate what they believed in for fear of that dreaded Trump label. So in the end, They gave their voting public nothing worth voting for. The results in Australia and in Canada are being trumpeted as proof that Trump is on the nose and the world is rejecting his politics, but actually it's weakness that is on the nose, and the world is rejecting visionless, empty suits who are more worried about seeming virtuous than they are about actually doing the things they pretend to believe in. That's what makes the situation in the UK different. Local elections are not, of course, the same as a general election, but the results were historic and telling nevertheless. Nigel Farage and the Reform Party believe in something, at the very least, and when they're attacked, they stick up for it instead of apologising. The next UK general election is still some years away, so if the Reform Party are going to carry their momentum and not stumble the way that Peter Dutton and Pierre Poilievre did, then they need to take the right lessons away from their recent local election results. Stand up for what you believe, especially when you get attacked. Don't back down. Don't apologise. Don't shift your stance in the hope of making yourself more palatable to the media class and to the intelligentsia who will never vote for you anyway. The people want someone or something to believe in, and that means first and foremost they want people who believe in themselves. Now, I started this report by saying that the English-speaking world is dividing in half, and I'll finish by finishing that point. It is dividing in half along a very simple fault line. Those that believe in themselves on one side, principally the United States of America, and those that no longer believe in anything. Canada, Australia, and will it be the UK? Well, in the UK, that choice has not yet been made, but the lesson for the Reform Party coming out of Australia and Canada is simple. Give the people something to believe in and watch them flock to you. Compromise? Well, then you'll share in the failures of both Dutton and Poilievre. I'm Topher Field, Australasian reporter for Tousi TV. You can follow me on YouTube directly via @TopherField, where I release new videos daily. If you'd like to keep up with events in Australia and the South Pacific, but of course I will see you right here on Tousi TV from time to time as well.